Welcome to part 3 of the video on the tutorial for the K-2 and the MS-20 full size and mini variants. In this video I'm going to be going over the Patchbay section as well as this external signal processor. Now in the last videos, in part 1 I went over the signal generation, like the oscillators and filters, signal generation and processing. Part 2, I went over the modulation section, the built-in modulation section here, and then the pre-wired, you could say. And then this is the semi-modular section here with the patch points that I'm going to go over in part 3. All right, so where I can start briefly is by pointing out where all of these things that happen here primarily actually enter the picture into your oscillators and your filters. And that's again through these modulation knobs here. Basically you're looking at right there 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Welcome to my channel. I really hope you enjoyed the tutorial. If you are interested in this content, I encourage you to please check out my individually crafted 75 techno, house, and electronica patches for the K2 and MS-20 variants. All links are down below this video. It's great if you would like immediate high quality sounds for your own songs, and also as learning material to see how each of the patches was made and use the principles for your own sound design. Thanks again and enjoy the video. And it's the second label. So the first label is the built-in modulations. The second label is the patch point modulations. Okay, so here built-in MG EG1. So that's, we know the LFO, envelope generator 1. And then the second one is TXT and EXT. Okay, here again second one TEXT, EXT, and here the second one TEXT, EXT. So you really just have external and total external. Now I'm gonna show you real easily how these align with the patch points. So basically you see this as the first, it's your top row right here. This is what you're looking at. Just this top row is the essential modulation inputs for this. So you're looking here at total TEXT. Every time you see TEXT, that's total. And basically the way that it works is like when you see just regular EXT, like on the bottom ones, each one of these has an individual EXT. So like frequency, cutoff frequency for the high pass, cutoff frequency for the low pass. Okay, so there's EXT is frequency for the high pass and for the low pass, and TEXT is just one for all of them. So you can put in a modulation source and then affect all of them. So let me do that real quick. Just before I even move down here, I'll just point out the very first one, which it says right here, you can read it, modulation generator, and you can see the lines. All right, there's your regular shape, sawtooth, triangle, and sawtooth up, which you originally have built in already. And then you follow the line here, and this is your out for the square shapes that we talked about. You see these square shapes? That's the only way to get these square shapes, is to patch it out right there. All right, so now when we patch it out, instead of bringing it in using the regular MG, we're going to bring it in using this point right here where we're going to patch it into. So I'm going to take the output of this LFO and put it into the total. All right, so now what's happening is it actually is affecting where it says TEXT on every single one of these. Okay, like the top 3. When you turn that up, you're gonna get whatever is in there. So in this case, see, that's our pulse LFO. Right? TEXT for the high pass, because that's their total. Alright? TEXT for the low pass. There you go. What's important to keep in mind is whenever you patch in the secondary source, the first source becomes deactivated. So whatever you put here, like I could put actually a noise, like you could put a you're able to put, for example, white noise or some sound from another synthesizer, like if you have it chained into your total. And then where it says MG, that will now be deactivated and you only get the total. So let's bring this back up. I like this white noise modulation sound. It's a pretty cool sound. Check it out. Well, it also changes the pitch, like when you do it to the oscillators. But it brings in a cool effect. Then what you have to do is you're gonna have to go in and, you know, retune your synthesizer if you're gonna do that with the white noise or FM or some other type of thing. Then you can go here and do the same thing for the high pass filter. You bring in the noise. You hear that sound? Or the low pass filter. Now we're having noise modulate this, or you could have like an external oscillator or something, and you can also combine them, because TEXT, that's the point. You can take one thing and combine it on all of them. Alright. So that's the TEXT. Now let's patch, and that's a white noise output, just a constant white noise output, and I'll show you that later. This is how you can actually bring in some white noise into your two oscillators without using up one of your oscillator slots. Or also there's a pink noise right there. So let's go back to the LFO, and you heard how when I brought these up, it actually canceled out that LFO MG, so it only is where you plug it in. Take out that square LFO again. Now we're going individual inputs. So here, see it says frequency, and it's got the arrows. It goes oscillator 1, oscillator 2. So that's your EXT, the lower knob for the oscillators. But here, in this case, our MG is also our LFO. So you get a combination of saw or triangle and square if you want that. Okay. Or we can patch other signals. I'll show you the envelope, for example. That's an envelope 1 out. So now we have our LFO here in the regular routing, and our EXT is our envelope. You hear that? So that's EXT for the oscillators. Alright, let's go back to the LFO. Skip the external signal in for now. That's going to be next. Cutoff frequency for the high pass filter. EXT. And this doesn't affect our, this is now going back to the standard routing, which is EG1, because the EXT is not the total, it's only each specific one. Here you have the EXT cutoff for the low pass filter. And you can hear it easier with the resonance, that's why I bring it up. Right? And here it's EG2. So you won't hear it on the high pass. Only hear it on the low pass. And you won't hear it on... Again, these are all individual. Alright? So that basically covers the top. Except here you have an initial gain. The only real use I found of this, I'll show you later. But basically it can give you... we'll go over the initial gain right now. But first I'm going to go back to the external signal in. Okay, so let's go back here. And external signal in is like a white noise. Or you can patch in something from an external synthesizer or anything else in there. A voice, whatever you want to just put on top of, like add an extra oscillator basically into your filter. You can even turn down the oscillators. And you have this, still have the gate running, which controls the envelopes, and just put an external signal in. So you still have your envelopes. So let's say you have an external sound source of some sort. You can use that now. You hear how that's really loud? There's a few ways that I can play with that volume, and I will show you that next. But for now, just remember the external input. So we covered this whole top modulation section. So the initial gain. Okay, we covered the top section here. Okay, we covered our LFO, which is modulation generator, ramp, and triangle, and square wave out. Okay, you can read it. Just read it, follow the little lines. And then the other lines just show you the default routing, like the drawn in, but read the labels and so forth to the connectors. Now this, you see envelope generator 1. All right. Basically envelope generator 1, and we have two versions of that, a regular and an inverted. All right. So that's when you take the regular out and you put the attack time all the way down, you always have a full sustain because there's no sustain level, and your delay and attack time is all the way down. So now you're running like an organ, like you know how you have those synthesizers like the Junos, where you can just basically you free up your filter envelope to do a different shape while your amplitude envelope remains totally open, so you can get a fatter sound. So if you want to just have a real plucky filter like this, but you don't want to have that volume drop off, you just want solid volume. That's where you can take your envelope generator 1, which is now in organ mode basically, and put it into your initial gain. So now that gain is always full, and you've just freed up your envelope here to only control other things like the filter. So that's how you get a separate, like, and you can use a little bit of release. You got to kind of play them together, but you can, so you kind of get that full sustain amp, and you can do different shapes. See that? Unless you want to bring some attack to your gain too. So now you have two envelopes, one for the amp and 1 for the filter, and that's how you do it right there. All right. So that's basically reverse. You know, that's more for like so instead of the your reverse envelope generator 1, instead of going up, it goes down. Okay, so that's good for like the pitch, for example. Like we go to frequency, all right, right here, and then let's bring this back up. Now watch this. First, it won't do anything really much. Like, it's kind of weird because I don't have any attack time, but I bring in some attack time. If you make it really short, you can get those plucks. It works better and worse for different lines because it's got that envelope thing going on still, where it's that legato envelope, but like it's great for like a Hoover line or something where you just play slower notes and it's like bow bow bow, like it goes down like that with the inverted. So we got the envelope generator 1, reverse and regular. We got the modulation generator, square wave and triangle. We saw the external signal in the initial gain, so we covered all that. The LFO, the envelope generator 1, you know. Another real basic one here is envelope generator 2. Okay, this is just like basically a reverse of the envelope generator 2. So if you want to play around with that, like for whatever reason, it only gives you a reverse, I guess, because it's guessing like, well, you already have enough default sources where it's regular. So if you want to play around with that, you can go back to your... See, this is another example where we take this, patch our envelope 1 to our initial gain so we don't lose our sound. Reverse. So like that's something you can play around with. Okay, so we got our envelope generator 1, envelope generator 2 reverse out. Let's go to the next row real quick. Okay, right here we have envelope generator 1 trigger. So there's different ways that we can basically, like, let's say we patch envelope generator 1 to our total for our pitch, for example. Then the control input. Generator 1 trigger in. You see when you patch that in right there, you don't have any trigger, so you're not it's not activated. You disable the trigger from the regular gate. This is where you can use like trigger switch out, which is this button right here, and you can turn it on. Try different creative things like maybe LFO. You know, just play around with that. That's the trigger for envelope generator 1 right there, basically. So you can get as creative with that as you want. Then we have this right here, which is the VCO2 CV in. And this thing right here, basically these VCO 1 and 2 CV in, VCO2 CV in, those work a little bit better when it comes to controlling it with like an external synthesizer, because once you plug something in there, it like decouples it completely from the pitch. So you kind of get a weird effect where you don't have a control of the initial pitch, but you have a control of the later pitch. So let's say we route envelope 1 into VCO2 CV in, then bring it up, and like you can control that with various strengths, but it's like, you see like the bottom pitch, when I just decouple that, is like just the bottom lowest where you can't even hear it. So it's like it decouples it from the key tracking. So this is better to use like VCO2 CV in, VCO 1 and 2 CV in. It would be the same thing, like right here. But you see, it decouples it from the keyboard tracking. So the only way you can control the pitch is with the knobs. So that's VCO 1, VCO 2 and VCO 1 and 2 CV in. Then like I'll just cover this real quick too. Trigger in, for example. These are really for like controlling with an external synthesizer, for example, like another K-2 or a Euro rack with a voltage converter or whatever you have to use. But they decouple from the keyboard tracking, so they're not that useful just from here unless you want to get a little experimental. So that's all of that. Then all we have left here is to cover. Right here we know we've covered the trigger switch out, which is just this button. We covered the white noise, which can modulate or be used as an external signal in. This is pink noise. This can be used as a modulator, external signal. Alright, so we covered that, and we just have a few things left to cover here. One of the most important ones is this VCA, and this is like a VCA to basically modulate, basically modulates like the strength of another signal with another signal. So like for example, you see how it says here default is envelope generator 1. It modulates this control input. So like whatever you put in here, so like let's say we go back, we put in white noise in here, right? Then we put it out. See how it's full, right? But let's say we do this. We put up the delay time, so it's taking a long time and it's re-triggering, so it's actually not bringing it in. That's the delay time. Alright, you can hear that. Basically what's happening is this is pre-routed to envelope generator 1. But we can actually take this white noise, for example, bring it through here, and we can put anything into that control input. So like let's say LFO with a square wave signal goes into the control input. Alright, and then that goes into the external signal in. Okay. Now another way that this is commonly used in the MS-20 variants is there's actually a mod wheel output for modulation wheel. Okay, and so it's kind of a tricky situation because the K-2 doesn't have that, and that's like one of the main weaknesses of the K-2 is it doesn't have an extra output for your modulation wheel. So this is where it's really good to have like an arterial key step or some other external modulation wheel signal that you can use. But there is like a bootleg modulation wheel. It doesn't quite work 100%, like from 0 to maximum, but it does work a little bit, not a little bit, but an intermediate range, which will help you to use something when you want to just use a mod wheel type source to control something in that control input. So for example here, check this out. Okay, we're gonna decouple it from here. This right here, this knob, frequency to CV out, if you don't have anything running through here, you can use that knob as like a bootleg modulation wheel, and it works up from about level 0 to about level 8. Check it out. See, it's all quieter. So there's like your K-2 bootleg modulation wheel, and then if you go up too high, it like cuts it to 0. So it's kind of weird, but it works, especially if you just need an extra controller. There it goes. And I'm assuming that works on the MS-20 as well. So you would have like 2 mod wheel sources. All right. So we got that. Okay. Then this is just your signal output, like regular if you want to take it to an external amp. Headphones output, we got that. Keyboard CV out. Trigger out, this is like for a keyboard CV out and trigger out. Trigger out is mainly, these are like to hook up to external synthesizers. So again, these kind of sections, VCO in, trigger out, CV out, for keyboard. It's good for external gear. But like this keyboard CV out is actually really useful because this is how you can get pitch tracking on your filters. So basically it works like this. So you take something like this and you can take it to either total or let's say just the low pass filter, right? Well, let's throw it in a total because check this out. Keyboard CV out. See total? So when I turn this up, that's, I get pitch tracking. Now like since it's total, I can use that on both filters. So you can get like some pretty cool sound effects, you know, like run like a ring mod through that or something. You know, different things. And you can hear when we uncouple it, it goes back to source 1, which is just your LFO. Alright, so there's that. That's very useful, that keyboard CV out. So we covered most of these right here. The last one is really the sample and hold. And this section down here, I will show you briefly how to use the sample and hold, and you can play around with it. The most simple way to use it is it's typically used with the white noise in. All right, and then here, sample and hold out, and that goes to, let's say, your oscillators frequency. All right. Right now it's not really doing anything because we have to really make it work, you have to put that clock signal. So the clock signal usually is just this square wave waveform, like on a pulse. The lowest, forget if it's the lowest or the highest pulse, let's find out right now. This is basic sample and hold. just playing like one note, that's your basic like R2D2 kind of sample and hold. Alright, you can play around with that. The last thing here on the basic patch points is like, I was gonna just show you, remember I told you about how you bring in that LFO using envelope generator 1 on a slow slope. This is where you can take your LFO out, put it in here like this, and put it from here to, for example, your external for your oscillators. Alright, let's bring back the oscillator. See how, like right now, there's our vibrato. Set like a maximum. Now set a delay time. Because that VCA, the envelope generator 1's controlling that control input. So you can make it fade in after like a delay. So you get a lot of, you get those funk sounds with that effect. Alright. As soon as you unplug it again, it goes back to just a standard routing. Okay, and then the last thing I will just go over real quick briefly here is this external signal processor. Basically the way this works is like you get a signal input, and then your first output is just the raw signal input. Okay, your second output here is after a bandpass filter. So you have a low pass and a high pass frequency. Okay, and then that can be converted to CV, and you can also get an envelope out, for example, or something like that. All right, so the easiest way to show this is like, let's put some white noise in. Okay, and then pull the white noise straight from the out. External signal in. Okay, what is going on? Oh, you see there's your signal level. Now, that's what I was going to show you about bringing in the white noise in a very easy way to your signal. That's the easiest way to do it. Just like that. Now you have a third oscillator for noise. Alright? And then let's say we want to do that, but you want to filter that sound. Then you put it after the bandpass filter. Let's say you want to turn your high cut all the way up, low cut a little bit to the middle, and turn up that thing. Now the high cut is like, it doesn't really go all the way to the top. So if you want the brightest sound, you want to come straight out here. But it does go to about this, and you can get that bandpass effect. Okay, for example. All right. Then that's that. These two I'm not really gonna go over because I don't want to get into doing external sound sources and things like that. That's where really you can watch another video specifically on external signal processor. But basically you put a signal in which is something outside your synth, like a voice or, you know, a guitar or something like that, and you can, it goes through the bandpass filter, it goes through your signal level, and right here you get like a CV out and you get an envelope out. This would control like a pitch, and this would control like the envelope. So let's say you're playing guitar or a voice and it's like bow bow bow, you get this kind of envelope like wow wow wow, and then you get a pitch like dun dun dun. So that pitch would come out of here, out of right here, the envelope would come out of here, and then you can use that to modulate other parts of the signal. And there's ways to like use that as like a vocoder, basically, like just run the envelope out and then use the envelope on your you know, VCA level and things like that, or your filter to, like, you could do something with your mouth like wow wow, you know, and it's going to affect whatever. It's like it becomes like a voltage source basically for a pitch or an envelope, like whatever external signal you put in. And then you know, that sums it up about, and you get just a regular trigger output. And then if you don't put anything, again, I showed you before, you can just use that CV adjust output right here as like a pseudo mod wheel. And that's about it for all the sections. So I hope you enjoyed the tutorial and you found that helpful, and leave any feedback in the comments down below. Subscribe to my video. Have a great day.